Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto News. First of all, what an interesting performance by Bitcoin last night, but right now, I'd say the most important coin to watch is Ethereum. Right now, I guess within the next couple of hours, we are going to see whether or not we're going to get ourselves a new local high or not. Indeed, Ethereum has not broken past its major resistance. It's still hovering. You can clearly see that. Even though we've made a little bit of a wick, we have yet to pass with some confirmation, albeit that Ethereum has indeed already passed its 200 weekly moving average that Bitcoin has still yet to beat. And a couple of fun facts. It's been 169 days since we saw levels of Bitcoin's price this high. And it's also been roughly 72 or so days since we basically saw the major bottom. Things are moving pretty fast, and when I keep saying over on Twitter and other places that you might never see these prices again, we're talking probability-wise. Again, following history, it still could take a pretty significant amount of time. It could be that only in August of 2024, we are going to be seeing a new all-time high. But if you just take an honest look at Bitcoin's price here and how it's recovered, it does indeed look like a lot of the recoveries that we saw like back in 2020 and years prior to that. It just does not seem as if we're going to go lower. But, and I should also state this clearly, there's always the caveat, which is, you can see right here, for example, as well. In the midst of the come down off of Bitcoin hitting its all-time high, we went up roughly 50% or so in 70 days. And right now, as I just told you guys, it's been roughly 70 or so days since the major bottom. It's been about, I'd say, 85 days or so since our perceived bottom by just looking at this. And so from that perspective, it would not be too crazy to just bounce off of this 200 weekly moving average and just fall down lower, albeit that I don't expect it to happen. I'm just putting out there that, we shouldn't get completely overzealous and irrational, because indeed, if we look back here, it's happened before that we see similar sort of pumps before actually falling back down. So just keep that in the back of your head. In terms of the overall crypto market, I'd say things are doing pretty good. I mean, BNB is up 3.1% or so. I'm actually seeing Tether is significantly in the third position right now. I'm not sure how long it's been since Tether overtook, standing at 67 billion. As I just said, BNB is one of the best performers right now. Polygon, with all the news that I also covered in the previous video, doing pretty good at plus 4.5%. Avalanche actually taking the cake here at plus 7.7%. But if we extrapolate, we can see Optimism is doing amazing. IMX is doing absolutely amazing at 7.8, but it was a lot higher earlier today. And especially Ethereum Proof of Work with plus 25%. And Loopring and Huobi token are the additional ones in the double digits. One that's almost in double digits is Neo. And the worst losses, I'd say, following the ranking is Quant. Following the actual numbers here, might be ICP at minus 3%. So generally speaking, quite a positive day. And again, you guys know how I feel about these negative days, right? Quant is one of my favorite cryptocurrencies. Hedera is one of my favorite cryptocurrencies. Usually, whenever these coins are down a little bit, I try to hop on an exchange and buy a little bit more of that coin than I usually do. And that's because I still believe like crazy in the crypto market. I have done a live stream earlier today where we covered everything that was happening on the Federal Reserve part. We had a very slight raise, I should say, and it's going to be continuing to go upwards and upwards and upwards from here on forward, basically. Albeit that it's going to be going slowly, but that's to combat the inflation and to keep things as quote-unquote stable as possible. Now, as I stated earlier, right after this was announced, we had some volatility, but pretty quickly afterwards, the prices just started to rise, even during the FOMC meeting, like the press conference from that itself. To make sure I'm not misunderstood, let me quickly say this. We're not sure exactly how high it's going to go, by the way, in terms of interest rate. All we know is that it's going to remain high for a significant amount of time to combat the inflation. We're not sure if they're going to keep raising it for all this time. I'm just trying to say it's higher than ideal for a long amount of time. I'd say at least another 10 months or so, but let's see. The most important piece that I wanted to cover today, I guess, is this article right here. Warren Buffett's right-hand man calls for banning Bitcoin. Now, Mr. Munger was actually in a lot of mainstream media right now for his very outspoken, interesting opinion. And apparently Munger is advocating for a ban on Bitcoin and other crypto, arguing that the recent proliferation of privately issued crypto has led to a gap in regulation and a disregard for consumer protection. Now, apparently in a recent op-ed published by Wall Street Journal, Mr. Charlie Munger, vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, argues that the US should impose a federal ban on crypto. Munger believes that a cryptocurrency is just a gambling contract, refusing to recognize digital assets as either securities or commodities, and complaining about the lack of investor protection. Warren Buffett's right-hand man suggests that the US should follow the lead of China by prohibiting crypto, and he also cites England's reaction to a depression in the early 1700s as another precedent for a blanket ban on digital assets. Now, I don't want to be that guy to say it, but I honestly do believe that whenever I read this, I get more certain about, two things basically. One, crypto is here to stay, and it's so intrusive to the major banking industry and the major financial industry that these guys are very much afraid. Now, on an opposite side, I'm thinking, wow, this is not just bullish for Bitcoin, but especially for those cryptocurrencies in these payment sectors. Let me actually read further before I move on, because maybe that way you'll understand better what I'm trying to say in a couple minutes here. In response to a promotional scheme that led to a depression in the early 1700s, you understand? Munger also cites England's reaction to depression in the early 1700s as another precedent for a blanket ban. In a response to this promotional scheme that led to a depression, the English Parliament banned all public trading in new common stocks. Again, I want you to remember this. They banned all public trading in new common stocks, all the way back then in the 1700s. The ban was in place for approximately 100 years, and Munger argues that during this time, England made the biggest national contribution to the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution and also spawned the United States. He ended his op-ed by calling for the US to follow Chinese communist leaders' splendid example of uncommon sense and ban cryptocurrencies in order to prevent further harm to the public. Munger has been one of the harshest critics of Bitcoin. Last year, he predicted the flagship crypto was likely going to zero. And in the past, prominent investor also compared crypto to some venereal disease and allows. So what I want you guys to get from this is two things. One, I think it's quite peculiar that he tries to compare. No, there's actually so many things we can fetch. It's interesting he tries to compare this to the trading of new common stock all the way back then. And again, you have to understand, the reason that it was banned for 100 years or so has not really got that much to do with crypto. There's not really overlap. It is, however, a pretty big compliment to say that it's so intrusive to that degree that he thinks a blanket ban should be followed. It's also something that he's really all of a sudden a very big fan of China, specifically how he's like upheavaling it so much. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Like he's loving it so much. He's saying, hey, follow the Chinese communist leader's splendid example of uncommon sense. Not so sure if I think a guy with that opinion should be followed, but okay. Anyway, the way I also think about it is coins that are related to payments, I think are really standing out from this the most, partially because it really does not follow along with the, public trading in new common stocks or anything like that. It's not a company so much, more so than a currency or things of that nature. I think with Bitcoin as well, it's not really as new common stock in any sense whatsoever. And even if it was, is that a bad thing? But the way I think about it is with these payments, you really are going against anything that he's saying right now, because from that perspective, it's not really a gambling contract at all. It's basically a new payment rail, a new currency or things like that. For example, if we're talking Quant, so QNT, if we're talking XRP, if we're talking HBAR, if we're talking, you can actually talk about so many. XDC here. How exactly is that a gambling contract? How could he believe that? How does that make sense? That's one thing. Second of all, why by banning this would all of a sudden the whole world, or specifically the United States, do better? And why then would they still, or should they still be allowed to invest in things like Berkshire Hathaway? Because from a certain perspective, he's basically saying, hey, they made a big statement hundreds of years ago. And because of their bans, the country flourished. I've been doing, because he's basically almost 100 years old, I've been doing exactly what we should also ban right here, allowing people to make money, because then our country would flourish yet again. But again, he's been doing some crazy investments for a big part of his life. I mean, it's kind of hypocritical. And I can go on a tangent for another 15 minutes or so, but it's peculiar to watch one of the most influential people on this earth have such a ludicrous opinion. And Well, it just showcases that a lot of wealth does not necessarily show much at all. And one thing I should also add again is these guys are afraid that it's going to hurt their own sector. I'm not so sure if it's completely the case, but I'd say that Warren Buffett and Mr. Munger are career capitalists, albeit that right now he's trying to state something opposite. Not sure exactly how that's supposed to be. But for the most part, they've made their money. They don't need any more cent ever in their life. They just really enjoy what they're doing, and they want to make more and more and more and more for the fact of making more because of what they do and what they've done. And so for that reason, I am not convinced that they're here solely for the best advancements of human beings. No, I think they're here solely to make the best achievable possible potential success possible within their company. I think guys like Mr. Beast, for example, are on that same level where nothing in this world really matters more than getting the company to grow. Even if you have to die in the process, as long as the company grows, that's the main goal. And from that perspective, I'm thinking that's why he's kind of against it, It's not because he doesn't think the technology is crazy and amazing and intrusive, because that's literally what he states. It needs to be banned because it's so intrusive. No, he mostly says it because it's outside of their area of profit. So why would they be bullish on it? No, rather be bearish. Again, that's my own thoughts on the matter. Anyway, one more thing I wanted to quickly share is that if you're wondering why Optimism was doing so well, everybody's talking about it right now. The most important thing you need to know is that there was just a Binance's BUSD integration onto Optimism. Yeah, and that's honestly why people are so excited about it. Not that deep, but the price definitely did very well because of it. And this is another call for people. If you're still wondering what coins are worth looking into, I'd say layer 2s. Check out for yourself Optimism, Polygon, maybe Arbitrum, and just kind of see how it works and see exactly what makes it good. I think you'd be surprised with how broad the crypto space can be. If you didn't understand those names, just take a look at it for a sec. And a little side note, guys, if you're still looking for an exchange to trade your crypto on, there will always be a link to Bybit right there. So just go ahead and check that out. And also, you can get a couple $1,000s, even sometimes up to $30,000 worth of bonuses by checking it out. So again, check it out with the link down below. Bybit is the crypto exchange that I use. And also, make sure you join us over on Telegram. You'll also find that right here. It's just a cool little group that we've made. But yeah, that was it for right now, guys. I'll get you again in another crypto video somewhere later tonight. Thank you. And again, make sure you press that notification bell on. Adios, amigos.